Hello, everybody. This is Why Go Vegan, and I'm so excited to introduce to you our next guest. So we have Claire Palmer. She is the founder and director of Animal Justice Project. She has been fighting for animal rights for over 20 years. She is a zoologist with a master's degree in animal behavior and welfare. She has specialized and worked all over the world. You'll also see her work for Animal Justice Project on national newspapers, BBC TV, ITV, and much more. Claire, we are so happy to chat with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure. Well, this is Why Go Vegan, so I want to kick off by asking you, Claire, why did you go vegan?
Well, I was thinking about this yesterday, and I've been vegan for a long time. So I went vegan in 2001. Which is when I was about early 20s. But I think, honestly, it started much younger than that. I probably went vegetarian when I was about 14 years old. And actually, the reason I went veggie originally was because I watched a documentary called The Animals Film on Channel 4, which is a really hard-hitting film. And I remember sitting up, I was like 14 years old, it was late at night, and yeah, my parents' house, obviously, and just watching this film, which is all about sort of how animals are treated in the so-called pet trade and on farms, obviously in slaughterhouses, and for experimentation. And I think that was probably one of the key moments. And then I went vegan in about 2001. And it was actually kind of the other way around. I went vegan because I'd already started doing activism. So for me, it was always about animal rights. So I'd already started, going to demonstrations, and I was sabotaging fox hunts, and I was doing all sorts of things. And that's when I met the first vegan people. And it was meeting those vegan people. I was still wearing leather at the time and veggie. And that was what really... that's what really sort of pushed me forward, and I've been doing activism ever since, really.
That's so exciting and interesting. I think surrounding yourself with like-minded people is so important. And the Animals Film, I've heard this come up time and time again. I think I need to research into who produced the film and thank them, because I think they've changed a lot of minds.
Yeah, and it was a film that I think was actually banned at some point, but it was released in sort of, I think, the early 80s, and then Channel 4, I think it was part of their ban series, so it was lots of different films that were a bit sort of risky, and I remember watching it. It was 1991, and yeah, I think documentaries, Earthlings as well, has had a huge impact. So I think really it's just being just opening your eyes, and sort of once you start seeing seeing sort of animal cruelty and the way animals are used by humans, I think for me, it's difficult to turn back. And, I've always been obsessed with animals anyway, from a child, basically. And there's many stories of me saving, crabs. And when I was in school, I was the animal monitor, and I was letting the rats out on the holiday that in the biology, and taking them home at summer holidays. And I've just been always animal mad.
Claire, I absolutely love that. And I want to ask you, because our Why Go Vegan viewers may be just starting their vegan journey, so there might be some hurdles or challenges. I mean, can you think about any challenges that you had when you first started your vegan journey, and maybe how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I started my vegan journey many, many years ago. So, I mean, there would have been hurdles in terms of, there was obviously much less selection in the supermarkets then. But honestly, because I was very much in it for the animals, it was always because I didn't want to cause harm to animals, and I didn't want them to die for me, really. And so any hurdles that I faced just wouldn't really have been hurdles. As I said, I think it would have been probably a lack of selection, a lack of choice in the supermarkets. But thank today we've got incredible selection. So the hurdles you would hope would be much less. I mean, you can walk in any supermarket nowadays, and there's vegan products absolutely everywhere.
There's everywhere. It's a case of, do I pick this, say, cow milk up, or do I pick this soya milk or oat milk or rice milk or hemp milk, or
is there too much choice? No, there isn't.
I love that, Claire. Thank you. Now, I want to sort of chat to you a little bit deeper as well, and to do with Animal Justice Project, because I feel that you would be a great person to help our viewers, because we hear this topic, these words mentioned, welfare washing. So I want to ask you, Claire, what do we mean by welfare washing? Why is it important?
I mean, it's really important. I mean, welfare washing is obviously similar to greenwashing, which is kind of environmental marketing. But instead of sort of overstating, eco-friendliness by companies are overstating their care for animals. So a classic oxymoron is humane slaughter. But I think certainly with Animal Justice Project, it's come into play a lot, because obviously, the reality is so bad for animals. The companies need to welfare wash to sell the products. And certainly we've seen firsthand things like enriched cages for hens. We did a big undercover investigation last year, and we went to over 10 free-range RSPCA assured laying hen farms churning out eggs for the supermarket. And you're getting these cages which are holding 80 birds at a time. So they're pecking at each other. They're even cannibalism. Obviously, they're walking on wire. And these are cages that are sold to consumers as being better than the battery cage. But the reality is that, it's questionable. Are they better? I mean, who knows? Arguably, they're more stressed, the birds, because there's more birds in a cage. So I think certainly we've seen firsthand welfare washing across the board. Similar with so-called higher welfare pigs that have lived free range, even though they don't live for much of their life free range. But we filmed them sort of being abused on their way to the abattoir, to the slaughterhouse, being struck with electric goads and what have you, and being abused by staff. Cows we've filmed on an organic, supposedly very high welfare dairy farm in the southwest of England, Bath soft cheese. And we saw the same abuse that we're seeing in zero grazing dairies. So really the reality is, it is just a very, very clever PR exercise, unfortunately. And the consumers, they'll pick up eggs in the supermarket and they'll see particularly, I feel like eggs particularly, is springing out as being a good example of welfare washing. Because if you look at egg cartons, you've even got things like grass on them in these enriched cage facilities. So it's just not the reality. And I think it is a big problem that NGOs like Animal Justice Project have to tackle head on. Because we need to show the reality to the consumers. And only by sort of learning and educating, consumers like the listeners here, they're going to then be able to make properly educated choices, because unfortunately you just can't trust these companies. You can't trust Red Tractor. You can't trust these so-called higher welfare companies. They're in it for the money. Profit will always become before animal welfare.
What can we do to help, Claire?
I mean, I think that as animal rights activists, we need to show the public the reality as much as possible. Friends and family that aren't vegan yet or that vegetarian and are on their way. But I think as NGOs, again, it's just about sort of educating and really sort of trying to come up with clever, strategic ways of sort of combating this welfare washing, because obviously, our budgets are so minimal compared to these huge corporations like Arla. So we've got a fight on our hands for sure, but I think consumers, they're not stupid. People aren't stupid. And I feel like people do have an innate compassion for animals. So I think, it's a case of showing the people the reality and educating them really, and hoping that, sort of urging people to choose plant-based in the supermarket and, make a little difference, because everybody can make a big difference, even just themselves.
Thanks, Claire. And just before we sign off, just want to ask you, what's that one little bit of advice you'll give for my viewer out there? Why go vegan? What's that one tip of inspiration that may help support them on their vegan journey?
I think, just going back to my last point, I think it's important that everybody knows that just by choosing plant-based products in supermarkets and not giving money to these meat corporations and the dairy companies, you really are making a difference. This is the thing. It's, veganism has grown in the UK and elsewhere, and it is making a difference. And I think it's just really important to be positive and stay empowered. and yeah, just choose vegan, really.
Love that. Thank you so much, Claire. Thank you for all the work you do, Animal Justice Project. We
Thank
all are
you.
big fans over here.
Thank
Let's
you
chat
for having
again
me.
soon, Claire. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thanks for watching.